There was a moment, just one, maybe 3 seconds long, when Arya almost told herself she was imagining it. She almost convinced herself that the way Hakjin looked at her from across the room meant nothing, that it was a habit, a reflex, the kind of surveillance that men like him applied to everything in their environment equally: the exits, the staff, the guests, the temperature of the room. She almost believed that. Almost. But she had been working at Voss and Mercer private events for 2 years, and in those 2 years, she had learned to read rooms the way other people read weather. She knew when a client was about to make a scene. She knew when a caterer was cutting corners on the food. She knew when someone was watching her, really watching her, in a way that had nothing to do with the event she was coordinating. Hakjin Park watched her like that every single time. It had started 11 months ago. A private corporate dinner on the 42nd floor of a building in Midtown Manhattan, booked under a consulting firm name that her boss had flagged with a short specific note. Handle personally. No junior staff, no questions. Arya had arrived 2 hours early to oversee setup, check the floral arrangements, confirmed the chef's timeline, adjusted the lighting 3 times until it felt right. She was rearranging name placards when the elevator opened and the room changed. That was the only way she could describe it. The room changed. The 2 men who stepped out first moved differently than normal people moved. Not rushed, not nervous, just deliberate in a way that made the air feel thicker. And then he came. Hakjin was 31, maybe 32. Tall for a Korean man, lean in the way that suggested discipline rather than luck. He wore a black suit that looked like it cost more than 3 months of her rent, and his shirt was open at the collar, just enough to reveal the edge of the tattoos climbing his neck. Dark, intricate, the kind of ink that told stories she wasn't supposed to ask about. His face was composed, still, like something carved from patience itself. He had looked at her exactly once that first evening. A single quiet sweep of his eyes, assessing, cataloging, and then he had moved on to greet his guests. Arya had exhaled and gone back to her clipboard and told herself that was that. But he had requested Voss and Mercer again the following month, and the month after. And every single time, through some rotation of assignments she no longer believed was coincidental, she was the coordinator placed on his events. 11 months, 14 events. And not once had Hakjin Park said anything to her that wasn't strictly necessary. The centerpieces need to be moved 6 inches to the left. Tell the kitchen we're pushing the second course by 20 minutes. The guest in the gray jacket is leaving early. Have his car ready. Clean, precise, impersonal. He never raised his voice. He never had to. People simply did what he said, immediately, without negotiation. And Arya had fallen into that pattern along with everyone else. What she hadn't expected was the other thing. The thing that wasn't instruction or correction or professional necessity. The thing that happened in the margins. The way he would position himself, without any apparent intention, between her and any door she hadn't checked yet. The way one of his men would appear beside her if she had to move through a crowded corridor, not escorting her, not obviously, just there, a quiet shadow that dissolved once she reached a safer space. The time she had stepped outside during a December event to take a phone call and come back to find a coat, not her coat, not anyone's coat she recognized, folded over the back of her chair. No one had said anything. She had never asked. She noticed. She cataloged. She said nothing. Because what do you do with something like that? What do you do when a man who controls rooms full of dangerous people treats you like something breakable and worth protecting, but never, not once, closes the distance between what his eyes say and what his mouth will admit? You wait. And eventually, if you're smart, you stop waiting and start wondering if you're the problem. By March, Arya had started to wonder. She was 28. She had a small apartment in Brooklyn, a plant she kept forgetting to water. a sister who called every Sunday, and a job she was good at. She was not someone who chased unavailable men. She was not someone who read meaning into silence. She was practical, grounded, the kind of person her friends called the stable one, which was a compliment she accepted while privately understanding it meant she was also the lonely one. Hakjin was not unavailable in any ordinary sense. He was simply sealed, contained behind something she couldn't name. Protocol, strategy, caution, history. She didn't know which. She knew only that whatever lived behind those composed dark eyes, it had chosen, deliberately and consistently, not to reach for her. So she had started to build a wall of her own. Not out of pride, exactly. More out of self-preservation. She arrived at his events, did her job with her usual precision, allowed herself exactly 0 lingering looks in his direction, and went home and watered her plant, and called it professional boundaries. It had been working. Mostly. Until the evening in late April when everything shifted, and it shifted because of Marcus Webb. Marcus was a vendor. Sound and lighting, subcontracted through Voss and Mercer, reliable and charming in the easy, uncomplicated way of someone who had no idea what complicated even looked like. He had been flirting with Arya for 2 months, gently, without pressure, the kind of flirting that felt more like a standing invitation than a demand. She had been friendly. She had been nothing more. But that evening, during setup for a private anniversary gala at a boutique hotel in the West Village, Marcus had made her laugh. Really laugh. The kind that surprised her, that made her cover her mouth and shake her head. He had said something ridiculous about the chandeliers, and she had laughed, and when she looked up, she saw Hakjin standing 20 feet away. He was supposed to be in the pre-event briefing room. He had no reason to be in the venue hall at that hour. And yet there he was, still and watchful, his eyes moving from Marcus to Arya, with an expression she could not fully read. But she felt it. The shift in atmospheric pressure. The particular quality of his stillness that was different from his usual stillness, charged with something underneath, something tightly controlled but present. He held her gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Then he turned and walked back toward the corridor without a word. Arya stood very still for a moment. Her heart was doing something she didn't want to examine. And then, slowly, carefully, like someone picking